I'm going to bring showrunner out, Lauren Hisrick, and star of the show, Freya Allen. Please give them a very warm round of applause. Go for it. Here you come. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to my living room. How are you doing? You on?
I think so.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, how are you guys doing?
That's a really dramatic entrance.
You know, totally. I was like, here they come, shit. How does it feel, because this is the best place for you to be to promote The Witcher, how does it feel to be amongst the UK fans?
I'll let you start.
Exciting, yeah. They're less crazy than the ones in San Diego.
May I ask how crazy the San Diego fans are?
San Diego was wild. I mean, it was our first Comic-Con for both of us, and I think
everything was probably even more amplified because of that, because we were like, oh my gosh, we were thrown right in the deep end.
Right.
We'd never done anything like that.
I think as we were heading out, they were like, oh, there's about 7,000 people in the audience.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is nothing. This is fine.
No, this is
chilled.
Amazing.
Yeah, this
I
is
can't
great.
actually see the back there, but it looks like it's pretty full.
Cool, and thank you guys for
Yes,
coming.
thank you guys.
Thank you. Tell me, now the show isn't even out yet. There's been quite a lot of hype online. What are the kind of common questions and things that you're reading online about the show already?
I mean, probably the thing that I get asked the most is where The Witcher will sit in sort of the pantheon of other fantasy shows. And I think fantasy on television right now is amazing. And I'll just say it, Game of Thrones, really great show that we're huge fans of too. And we get asked a lot if we're going to replace Game of Thrones, and I think Game of Thrones is irreplaceable. And I also think that The Witcher is its own exciting thing, and I think it's going to have its own place.
Yeah, absolutely, and deserves its own place as well. There's room for everything.
There is room for everything.
Now, Lauren, I wanted to ask, because you have worked on lots of amazing shows, from the Umbrella Academy to Daredevil and everything else in between. Were there any similarities or differences coming to work on The Witcher? Like, what did you bring from those experiences?
Well, Daredevil was my first show with Netflix, so that was exciting because they're such great creative partners and really allow people like me to have a lot of creative freedom in what I do, which is exciting. The big thing that I learned on Daredevil and Defenders and Umbrella Academy is about adaptation and about taking something that has a huge fan base and that people really, really love in its existing form and translating it to a new form. And the changes that have to be made between a comic book and television, or between a beloved book series and television. With comic books, I think it's great because there's a real economy of language, so you have to kind of fill in the gaps. And with The Witcher, there's 8 books. There's not a lot of gaps that need to be filled. It's a ton of words. It's like 4,000 pages of them. So, you know, really, we went straight to the books as our source material, and it was really fun to adapt because there's so much to do.
Yes, yeah, quite a lot.
Quite a lot to do.
Now, I'm in the same position as the audience right now because I have seen nothing in advance, and I'm very excited because we're about to show the first clip.
Yes, and these are clips that have been that have never been seen by the sort of public. So
yes, this is exclusive. You guys are very lucky. Right, we're in this together. You guys, are you ready for the first clip? Ooh. 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 Shivers down my spine. I love a good action scene as well. Oh, good. So explain what's happening in this scene here. There's some badass moments going on.
Well, there's a guy named Geralt, Henry Cavill. Don't know if anyone's heard of him.
Might have, yeah.
Our amazing Geralt. The great thing about scenes like that is that Henry does all of his own stunts. Sometimes to our dismay. We're like, just let someone else do it. Don't hurt yourself. He does everything. So anytime you see Geralt on screen, it's actually him. This was a fight that was shot over, I think, about 5 days total. And we're at a wedding sequence here, and of course there's a hedgehog man, as there is at good wedding sequences. This is Geralt's sort of first run-in with Destiny in the show, and it really changes his journey for the entire rest of the season.
Now, I should have asked this at the very start, but for those who don't know, tell us what a witcher actually is. Let's talk about what a witcher is. Can you explain?
We were laughing earlier because this question was asked at San Diego Comic-Con. And if you ask me what a witcher is a monster hunter. Thank God they asked Henry what a witcher was, because he gave about a 5-minute diatribe about growing up and children and elixirs and mutagenic alchemy.
I was like, what is he on about?
Like, what is mutagenic alchemy again? No, I mean, it is, Geralt is a monster hunter, and monsters, witchers were created by mages in order to solve a monster problem on the continent. And what ended up happening is they're actually now almost as hated as the monsters themselves. So they're a really marginalized piece of society.
Now, you talked a little bit about adapting the book for screen. You mentioned that. There's 8 books, right? I mean, that's a lot to get through to really squeeze into what you want to see, what we see on screen. So, were there any difficulties or anything that was easy? Like, how do you go about even like bringing 8 books to the screen? It's quite a task. Where do you start?
Yeah, no, it was not easy. Was any part of what we did easy? I don't think so.
No.
No. There are 8 books. Obviously, I read all of them. That's where I started. To me, it was really about, the books start with a series of short stories called The Last Wish, which is my favorite book of the series. And I knew that that's where I wanted to start, because that's really it's the foundation of the world. It's when you get to understand what a witcher is, the monsters that they're hunting, really the political climate of the continent. But there was a big problem for me in The Last Wish, which is that Ciri, who Freya plays, and Yennefer, who Anya Chalotra plays, are not huge characters in it. And I really wanted them to be big characters in this series from the beginning. I didn't want to wait till season 3 to meet them. So one of the first changes that I made is I really elevated the stories of Ciri and Yennefer, and I brought them more to the forefront. And what I think is great, and Freya can speak to this, is that you get to meet Ciri, for instance, for who she is, and her world, and what it's like to live as a princess in Sintra. And you get to meet her before she ever interacts with any of the other characters. And she's a fully formed character by the time then she starts changing again when she starts meeting the other characters.
And going up to thinking about fantasy series, you mentioned Game of Thrones and things earlier. We've also got Vikings and all these sort of historical type shows. We did the Britannia panel yesterday. What is it about these shows you think that people connect to so much? This sort of fantastical, otherworldly sort of vibe.
The escapism of it,
Yeah.
and just being transported to a completely different world, and but at the same time they also have a lot of things you can relate to, so you get to have that to be able to connect to, whilst also being able to be transported to a completely different world. So I think that's what attracts a lot of people. That's what attracts me.
Yeah, good answer. We're going to go into your character next. We're going to show a clip, another clip. This is the second clip. Ooh, another spine tingler. Round of applause for that one, please. Okay. So,
It gives me chills every time I see that. I love it. I love that scene so much.
It's a beautifully shot scene as well. It looks gorgeous. And we saw a bit of action earlier, and so we're seeing a little bit of drama and a bit more emotion as well, so which I'm liking. Because again, this is the first time I'm seeing it as well, so I'm like, oh crap, when is it out? I want to see it now.
No, I think that, it's a really important thing that we're at least striving to do at all times.
Yes.
Is that you can have all of the action in the world, and there's a lot of violence in the show, there's sex in the show, there's blood, there's dead babies. This particular sequence had a banner across it for the longest time for visual effects, and it said,
"Make baby dead."
This is "Make Baby Dead," because that was a live baby that we buried in the Canary Islands. So no.
I have a question. How do you make the baby dead? Just...
no actual babies were harmed in the making of The
Yes.
Witcher. So obviously we take the skin tint out. We were blessed by an actual sleeping baby, which is great. And then the other thing that VFX does is take out eye flickers that happen, because if you look closely, of course, they're still breathing, there's still little blinky things. So all of those are removed, so make baby dead. But the show has, it was just as important to us. If you take out all the monsters and the magic and the violence and the sex and the sort of fantasy elements, there's some really great moments of pure drama and characters struggling with things that all people struggle with. And it's the interesting part of fantasy, right? Which is, it is normal people and normal people in abnormal situations or in abnormal places. But as Freya said, you still have to be able to relate to them. And that's, I think, what we do a lot on the show.
And I think often a lot of films and TV are kind of getting slightly suffocated with CGI and constant action, that you're thinking, where's actually the heart in this? Where's those moments of silence and, you know, connection and stillness with a character? And I think that's a perfect example of one of the moments in the show where you get that.
Oh, absolutely. I think giving, when a room has show to breathe like that, because I think when you have lots of CGI and explosions and violence, it assumes the audience is maybe that's what they want, but the audience want heart as well. So it's all about the writing as well. I want to talk about your character, Freya, Princess Ciri. When you read the books, did it affect the way that you were going to play the character? How do you adapt that character for screen?
So when I found out I got the role, it was the day before my birthday, and I had said I don't really want anything this year, and then I found out I got that role, and I was like, okay, I know what I want to get one of the books. Yes. So I got The Blood of Elves, and I read it in sort of 2 days, probably not very effectively, because I was just kind of so excited to see, you know, what Ciri was like, and but that's the only book that I've read, but it did give me a really nice essence of Ciri, and it immediately got me so excited to play her, because you could see the kind of feistiness of her and how stubborn she is, and I thought that's going to be really fun to play.
So how do you develop that? So you've mentioned feisty and stubborn. How have you developed that through the first season, her character?
Well, it's interesting because you really see it at the start that she's very, you know, how stubborn she is, how feisty, how driven. But she's in a far safer environment then to be able to feel that way. And then that still is very much kind of a strong part of herself, but you do also see when there's a shift in her environment, how vulnerable she really is and how naive she is to the world, and how, you know, she's not the best at defending herself yet. But so it was interesting to still carry that forward, the fact that she's stubborn and feisty, but also bring a layer of vulnerability and suffering and loss to her as well. So yeah, it was fun to get to kind of explore.
An interesting one to explore. Lauren, when you were casting the actresses in the show, like, what qualities were you looking for in the female characters? What made you go, yes, Freya is Princess Ciri?
So Freya knows. Freya was not immediately Princess Ciri. Freya was actually a character named Marilka first. We cast her, signed her deal. It was a part in just the first episode and never again. And we could not find Ciri. We looked really hard. We looked at all different ages, really had an entirely worldwide search, and still just couldn't find the essence of who we wanted. And Sophie Holland, our amazing casting director, called me and said, I have an idea, and sorry you're going to have to find a new Marilka, but I think Freya could really be Ciri. And I flew to London and...
So they call me up and they're like, so Lauren and Alec and the producers are flying to London to see you for Ciri. And I'm like, wait a second, I just got another role. Am I kind of playing... And then when I found out I got Ciri, I was like, cool, so I got 2 roles in this show. Like...
No, we're taking one back.
Yeah.
We're taking one back.
So with the other female characters, Lauren, what qualities were you looking? Because you're putting them in the forefront a little bit more than what we've expected from, say, the books and things. So what made you decide to do that?
You know, when I first spoke to Andrei Sapkowski, the author of the books, I told him I was really surprised by the strength of the women in these books. And he actually said something funny, that I'd never met his mother, who, you know, he basically explained to me the role of women in post-war Poland, and said that most of the men were dying off in conflict, and women became really not just the center of the family, but the center of of society, of culture, and of the workplace. And so, you know, it's interesting because people ask me about the female characters a lot and sort of the complications of them, but it's really just what real women are like anyway, right? I mean, it's strong in some circumstances, vulnerable in others. Occasionally bold, occasionally bitchy, occasionally silent. It really is, to me, what I wanted to capture is these women before they were seen through the lens of anyone else. In the books, all of the characters are met through Geralt. So you get Geralt's impression of them, and then you get to learn to meet them. And I wanted the world to see Ciri who she was first. So when I was looking for them, I really wanted to Freya's point, I really wanted to see a depth of character in all sorts of different situations. We'll actually see in the next clip, I believe, the scene that you auditioned to with a character named Dara. And it's Ciri at both her most stubborn, because she has been a princess for a long time, she's always gotten what she's wanted. I love what Freya said, she's been feisty and brave because she's been really protected. And then suddenly she's out in the world, and you see her vacillating back and forth between being brave and strong and being fucking terrified about what's about to happen and who's after her.
That's how it realistically would be. You know, in this situation she's put in, she's not going to be like, oh, cool, yeah. That's, you know, with the things that she sees. She just wouldn't. And it's, you know, she does have a heart. She's a real human. So yeah.
Well, I like a segue. Thank you.
Did I just introduce our next clip?
No, I love it. I'm like, oh, this is great. Easy. Let's introduce the next clip. Oh, okay, cool. I'm really liking these clips. Like, it's getting me, I'm quite excited about this. Are you guys excited? Yes. Now, we see another character there with you, Dara. Tell me who Dara is and what is the relationship between both of you?
Dara is a very kind of crucial part of her story this season, because he is the main source for her of a different perspective, a different viewpoint, and he's vital at keeping her going. They really do become a team. And what's so interesting is that they are from completely opposing backgrounds, and they have completely, you know, they've been brought up in totally different ways, and yet they find a commonality in it, and it doesn't become important anymore where they've originated from, because they're going through very similar emotions, loss, and so they really do become a good team.
I suspect we'll see that relationship develop as we move through the series, but I want to ask Lauren, actually, from a creative perspective, how do you go about creating these very intricate relationships and keeping them very real and very solid, like from a creative perspective? How do you do that?
I mean, this is a great clip to intro that to, because Dara is a character who's not present in the books. And I get asked a lot in terms of changes that I've made in the books, or changes that the writers' room made, and why. And this is a perfect example, which is Ciri's journey this season is she's really on the run. And she's bouncing from place to place and meeting a bunch of different characters. And we actually wrote, this is from episode 102, episode 2 of the season. And there was a version written without Dara, but it basically was just Ciri wandering by through woods by herself. And it was not very interesting because she didn't have anyone to talk to. And immediately it's like we needed to create a character who could, exactly as Freya said, mirror her experience in so many ways, but also broaden her experience in others. And that's constantly what we're trying to do with all of the characters. which is allow them situations where they feel familiar and they can be their normal selves, and then constantly challenge them and make them rethink things. And yeah, I think this particular season skips through a lot of space and time as well. So I think there'll be a lot of fun pairings of relationships that fans will hopefully really be looking forward to and expecting, and also some new fun ones.
So we've got this last clip here. It's just a teaser, and I've got a few more questions. If there's time, we'll open it up to the floor. So let's play this next teaser clip and go.
I remember hearing stories.
Ooh. Now, watching the clips and watching that teaser, there's a definite palette and style I'm seeing running through the series. Did you have a distinct vision at the start of how you wanted this to look in terms of style?
Yes, absolutely. Again, we went back to the books for just sort of like architectural inspiration and guidance. The big thing that we wanted the world to look like was not too dire, because the world of The Witcher is not constantly miserable. It's not people just preparing for death. There's a lot of fun in the show. There's a lot of love in the show, and genuine affection and family. So we also wanted to introduce a lot of colors and a lot of, when we're in Sintra, for instance, it's beautiful. Also, I wanted to point out, it's not obviously in the teaser clip, but in the clips that you guys saw, the 3 previous clips, you're also hearing our music for the first time, the music that will be in the show by our amazing composers, Sonia and Jonah. And it brings so much to the world too, in addition to the look that we're going for. It has, let's just say, they're constantly presenting me instruments, things like hurdy-gurdies, and things that they'll be like, this is what was used, in ancient Poland in the year 300 to make, timpani sounds. Okay, great. It brings so much to the world and gives so much flavor to the world in addition. So I realize we haven't given a lot of music away yet. I think it's going to be a really, really big part of the show as well.
And when author Andrzej Sapkowski, came to set, what did he make of it? Because he must have been like, oh my goodness, this is my creation come to life. Was he really excited? What was his thoughts?
I mean, yes, he was super excited. Anyone who knows Andre, excitement for him means maybe you get like a little half a smile, like maybe you get a little half a smile. He actually was wiping tears away at one point. He was so excited, I think, to see his world come to life, but also to see how dedicated we were to bring it to life. It's a really big show. It's a lot of sets. It's a lot of locations. We have cut no corners trying to bring it to life, and I think he was super excited. He's not seen any of the episodes yet. He told me he has a great analogy that he used, where he was telling me that he doesn't want to see the ingredients of the soup. He just wants to taste the soup at the end. So he has access to all the scripts. I've pitched him the series. He gets dailies if he wants them, but he actually, as soon as he came and visited and saw that we were dedicated to his vision, he stepped back and wants to see the show with the rest of the world.
Oh, are you excited about his reaction when he finally sees it? Yeah, straight on the phone. You mentioned at San Diego Comic-Con about the relatable themes in the show, and you've actually said today that there's quite a few relatable themes as well. Explain what kind of themes we expect to see that we could relate to when watching this series.
I would say loss is a big one, and coping with that. I think that's definitely for Ciri's journey. That's a huge thing that she's going through, and for the whole show, I would say family is a massive theme. Whether you've lost family, or whether you're searching for family, or whether you're destined for a certain family, it's definitely something that's a crucial part in all the characters, I would say.
I think too, our tagline in that initial teaser is the worst monsters are the ones we create. And that's a big thing that we tried to do in the show, is really, there's not, anyone who's read the material, the Witcher world is not black and white, it's very gray. And we tried to stay true to the idea that if just because someone looks good on the outside or may have good intentions doesn't mean that they don't have a darker side inside. And the people that you would typically watch the first season and say, well, oh, obviously that's the villain. It was really important for us to get into his brain and understand why he's doing what he's doing, and that he actually thinks he's doing something for the good of the continent. So I would say one of the main themes is really about, I was going to say non-judging a book by its cover, but I should be able to come up with a better analogy than that as a writer. No, it really is about looking deeper than the skin.
Cool. Now, before we hand it over to the floor, if you guys have got some questions, just stick your hands up. I want you to tell me just in a couple words or maybe one sentence why people should watch the show. Go for it.
Because we think it's really good.
That's good enough. That's good enough for me. I'm into it. Freya, do you want to add anything?
Well, I mean, we spent quite a while doing it, so it would be great if you did.
Guys,
Someone watched it.
They've worked really bloody hard, so watch the show, and it looks absolutely incredible from what we've seen. Absolutely
Thank
beautiful. Guys, if you've got a question, stick your hands up now. Oh, we've got some here, some there, and we'll come over with a mic. Okay.
Be nice to us.
Yes, be nice. And no spoilers, obviously. There should be no spoilers here.
Hi. Well, hi, it's for Lauren. You're obviously pulling a lot of really good bits from the book, and we know that the games have brought through a load of really incredible stories as well. Going forward in further seasons, do you think you'd pull stories from the games as well, or are you going to stick to strictly the book material? Thanks.
It's a great question, and one I'm asked a lot, so I'm glad we get to talk about it. I'm a huge fan of the games. I will admit that I suck at video games. I'm better at drinking a beer and watching my friends play video games. I love them. They're beautiful, and it was really inspiring for me to watch them at the beginning. That being said, the books provide plenty of source material. Netflix could keep us, streaming for 20 years, and we still wouldn't be able to cover it. The simplest thing that I always go back to is that the video games are an adaptation of the books. So I don't really want to do an adaptation of the source material. For us, the source material has everything that we need.
Next question.
Another question here.
Hi guys, the clips look great. As the titular character, Geralt obviously is a big draw for a lot of fans. But it's great that you're expanding other characters a lot, but what sort of, if you had to ballpark a percentage of how often Geralt's on the screen? Thank you.
I'm a writer, math not so much my thing. I would say we're not quite split into equal thirds. Geralt's on the screen a lot, don't you worry. The big thing for me was also making sure that, that Yennefer and Ciri get their due, and that we understand them, so that when we put all the characters together, which eventually we will, that's not really a spoiler, maybe it is, when eventually we will, we'll understand each of them individually so we can understand their dynamics together. So I personally watch the episodes. There are definitely episodes that are more Geralt heavy, there's some episodes that are more Yennefer heavy, and there's episodes that are more Ciri heavy.
And a question here at the front.
Hi, my question is for Freya. As a young actress, what do you think has been the greatest challenge for you in such a big production? Yeah, that's basically.
Thank you.
I think my challenges were definitely mostly at the beginning of filming, because Ciri goes through a lot at the start, and so it was quite daunting that was going to be the first scenes that I was filming. So I'd say my biggest challenge was some really kind of tough emotional scenes that I really had to kind of get into a headspace that I hadn't really experienced having to get into before. So that was definitely a challenge for me, but it was something I was really excited to get to, the opportunity to get to play, and we had a fantastic director, and so I'm really proud of it now.
That's a good question, thank you. We got another one?
Okay, we've got time for one final one.
This is for Freya. Do you see any traits and qualities of Ciri in yourself at all? Thank
Yeah, I see a lot of Ciri in me. She is not afraid of voicing her opinion, and and she's very stubborn, and I'm very, very stubborn too. And you know, she's not going to let the fact that she's a girl or a princess get in her way. She's got a lot of people who are kind of like could potentially dictate her future for her, but ultimately she makes the decisions and the choices herself, which I can definitely relate to. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities between us for sure.
And you wander around in the snow by yourself all the time.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Freya, what she's not saying, I thought about this when you answered the earlier questions. For almost all of Freya's scenes were outdoors, in the middle of the night, in the snow in Budapest. And how she survived.
I think the biggest difference between us is that she's got like bleached eyebrows and bleach, and I didn't. But we're very similar, yeah.
Thank you. Good question. Now, guys, I'm very bloody excited about this. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Thank you. Guys, did you enjoy the panel? And are you excited about The Witcher? Yes. Cool. I'm glad. Lauren, Freya, it's been an absolute bloody pleasure to sit here with you. Thank you very, very much. And we will see you very soon, I hope.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Great audience.
you.
We had
Laura
so much fun.
and Freya Allen, everyone. Louder, louder, come on.